The sport of off-road racing is full of incredible stories, wild characters, legends, and even villains. We cover it all on offroadracer.com, but there's only so much we can put down in an article. Sometimes we have to dig a little deeper, and that means sitting down with some of our industry's most influential characters and hitting record. Welcome to the Off-Road Racer podcast, a Mad Media production, made exclusively for offroadracer.com. Each month, we'll go beyond the dirt into the homes, shops, and lives of the most interesting and game-changing icons of our sport. You'll hear about their history, success, failure, and everything in between as we pull back the curtain and reveal the stories of their lives. I'm your host, Matt Martelli, and this is the Off-Road Racer podcast. What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Martelli. This is the Off-Road Racer podcast, and I'm joined by basically my right arm and my favorite cousin, Kilian Hamlin. What's up, dude?
Good. It's good to be here. Haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to catch up.
Yeah, the whole, I think 6 hours or something.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, a lot of people they don't know that we're related, right? And they don't know, at what point did Kilian just show up and start doing things? It's for most people in our business, all of a sudden Kilian appeared. So talk a little bit about how you ended up here.
Well, I always tell people you ruined my life, but for the better. I was at Michigan State at the time, and I just graduated, and you were like, come out to California, check this out, see what's up. And I think I showed up with Birkenstocks on, and you immediately, 2 days later, took me to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and Rob McCachran flew over my head, and from there it was pretty much a wrap.
Well, yeah, but you originally come out to go to a show with Josh, right?
Yeah, Fish.
Yeah.
Fish is worth traveling out here for, but I didn't think it would turn into a year, into 3, into 5, into now 14 years later.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty wild to think about, right? You kind of had a planned trajectory for your life of you were in college studying kinesiology and, whatever you're planning on going into your own practice or whatever. And then off-road happens.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, I remember in college, you guys sent me the Chronicles of Bebo, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I guess, what is this? I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know trophy trucks existed, nothing. And then, just coming out here and quickly getting thrown into it, I pretty much fell in love.
Yeah, it was funny. I remember we were testing with BJ, and it's an experience that, I think is very important if people get the opportunity to get into a trophy truck, especially with a competent driver, because, the math is crazy on them. It's more people have been at outer space than ridden in a trophy truck. And so, I stick you in with BJ and your fucking mind gets blown.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was what helped me through the process initially, is just coming on board with you guys. I was supercharged into being able to have cool experiences and meet people and, do a lot of the stuff that it would take time for just anybody trying to get into it. I definitely kind of, took the fast track, kind of getting into this.
Do you remember the point where the plan changed from okay, I'll this is cool. I'm in California. I'll hang out and work with my cousins. And then there was a point where things clicked and you really took ownership in it and, became a very crucial part of our business.
Yeah. I mean, originally, probably like many people who get into off-road racing, going to shops, sweeping floors, things like that, I was doing the same thing, getting coffees and just, doing whatever needed to be done at the time.
You gotta tell them the cat poop story.
Yeah, I'd clean some cat shit off the roof. That's a initiation into Mad Media. But I was at the time, social media was becoming an integral part of marketing your business. And I kind of found my niche early on in that, just helping this new way of marketing. And then I was doing a little bit of filming. I still remember pulling zebras on the HVX, on the Panasonics,
Oh yeah.
trying to find, exposure and all that. But yeah, it was just a learning process, and it was you, Vincent Knackle, our director of photography, and Josh, obviously, and then Lonnie Peralta on the production side of things that really, I learned pretty much everything I know from.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's I don't remember the exact moment or year or whatever where like you went from being like, I expected at some point for you to be like, okay, cool, thank you, I've had enough, like I'm going home, right?
Well, I think at some point Josh was telling you to give me let me keep going, and then it flipped, you telling Josh let him keep going.
Yeah.
So like I definitely had like a more challenging or harder time proving my worth, I think
Sure.
a little bit, because I was your cousins, so
Yeah.
a lot of people were like, oh, this is just some kid who's here because he's been given this opportunity. And while I was given the opportunity, I feel like, probably like, 2016, 17 is really when I was like, okay, he's more than just a kid from Michigan. He's actually proven himself, and now he's a valuable asset to these companies.
Well, and I also think like I remember there were points where like you started thinking about the business, right? Like, so instead of me going, hey, here's your task list to do for the day, right? Like there's a point where you were like, hey, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and you need to think about this and do this. And for me, that was really exciting because obviously like you and I have spent a lot of time pre-running and off-roading, and I don't think I want to make people like me per se, but like when somebody from your family or somebody that's your friend gets the stoke and they see and feel the same thing that I do about off-roading and off-roading culture, that's a fun thing to share.
Yeah, for me, it was just going into things and scenarios, with a plan. And you think you can do all your homework and pre-produce, and you have everything in line. And then, 1 mile into it, something happens into a 1,000 mile race, and you just got to figure it out. And it was at the time, a lot of what I was trying to do in my personal life was, okay, graduated high school, went straight to college, you meet the girl, you get the house, you have the kids, and then like you look back and your life has been lived almost already. So at the time I was like, all right, for once I'm not locked into anything. So let's go out to California for a little bit and see what it's all about.
Yeah, no, totally. Do you remember like, what year it was with the Mint where it was like you started just taking on a much bigger role?
I don't think the bigger role came until like 2020.
Yeah.
But 2016 was, I think, maybe the year that you and I had our internal, joke that we always talk about of driving home from the Mint and looking back and being like, holy shit, we really just did that.
Oh yeah, it was emotional.
And then breaking down into tears driving home from Prim, just like, oh my God,
well, for people to understand, like putting on the Mint it's like a mini war, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very physically, emotionally, psychologically taxing. And one of the weirdest feelings is like after you do it, it's like you have this weird come down where it's almost like disappointment, right? Mm-hmm. And like we're in the car together, we're leaving Vegas, and we're like, it's like we never even existed, right? Mm-hmm. Like Vegas is already on to the next thing, and Vegas doesn't care.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest part, honestly.
Right?
It was like, cool, we think we're big and we did this amazing thing, and they're like, cool, see you next year. We got this next thing coming through, and
exactly.
See you later.
Yeah, and so then post event, you're just kind of it's a letdown, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you've been gearing up for 3 months or a little bit on and off for the whole year, but the leading into it's really intense, long hours, lots of questions, lots of emails, lots of phone calls, And I think the other thing is like, we actually give a shit. We care. And that's a good thing and a bad thing because, it's a good thing because I think it shows, but it's a bad thing because it's hard to let go of the responsibility of all these details.
Yeah. Well, especially now because it's ours, and we're independent. We're not independent anymore, but, in those years, Best in the Desert had carried half the load on all the, race operations and all that. But now in 2020 was really the year that's like, okay, we're doing this. It's all on us. So, the emotions and the feelings that we were feeling then is now doubled because
Sure.
the workload is doubled. And it's really cool to think about the evolution of the event over the last 4 to 5 years specifically. How we were joking at lunch in 2020, we had never done bikes at the Mint. We were still doing UTV World Championship in Laughlin, and there's so many things to figure out. We were doing, I think, 2 races per day, waking up at 4 a.m., racing until midnight. And it was just like brutal. But year after year, we've been able to massage the schedule of events and really kind of find the right formula to make things easier for the most amount of people that we can,
Do you think, I mean, you've done races with me, so do you think that gave you a unique perspective?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the perspective I got was, I think you had some downtime on the first lap. It was what was the Best in the Desert race in Vegas?
Yeah, I can't even remember what it was called. Whatever the end of the year event
2-lap race. You did one, I did the other. And you had some downtime and cool, hand off the Jeep. We were racing Jeep speed.
Yeah.
And to me, and away we go, right? So I'm going, doing my thing. Derek was with us.
That's right.
Or with me in the truck. But get to one of the remote pits, and the course worker's like, the trophy trucks are at race mile 15. And I'm like, it's like race mile 25 or whatever. So I'm like, okay, and then going and going. And then, to have a helicopter swoop down on me over my head as I'm like, I can't even remember where I was, but it was through some whoops, and I'm just like,
Weren't you guys over in Chokers?
Maybe. I mean, it was like 5-6 miles from the finish, so maybe.
Yeah.
But anyways, he swoops down. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, like, all right. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Josh Daniel comes by or someone and just like, completely dusts me out. And then I'm just like, I'm going to pull over for, 15, 20 minutes and let these dudes go by.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a unique perspective to kind of see what the racers are doing and all of that. And that was, I don't know, 8 years ago now. We need to do it again.
Yeah, we need to do it again soon. For you, like, there's a lot of things that you're really good at. What's your favorite part of this?
My favorite part is probably just having an idea and having the freedom to just do it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most important parts of producing an event or starting something from scratch is, a vision and value,
Sure.
So it's like, there's all these ideas and there's, we've come up with a lot of crazy ones and, but they're just ideas until they're backed by value, so we don't have the luxury of, a bunch of money or a financial backer or anything like that. So everything that we do has to be valuable to somebody who would look at it and be like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And that's, it's been fun over the years, just from a creative side of things, coming up with crazy ideas and just being able to do them because you can.
Well, what do you think that this process that you've gone through, in going from like, okay, you had this plan in life, you know what you're going to be after college, and then you're on your couch surfing out here for a while, and then too, like, the one thing that I respect is like you started as an unpaid intern. You had to work your way all the way up the ladder and improve your value, and now you've become an integral part of the business and really the culture, right? And your communication with all the different teams and athletes and the brands and so on. What do you think? What's the takeaway? Like, what do you think you've learned from this?
I think, like I was saying earlier, it's just you think you're prepared for what you think is going to happen. And then, you know, it doesn't matter if it's chasing an off road race or, your path in life, shit's going to happen, and you have to figure it out. Like there is no alternative. You just have to keep going, So I think it's just really taught me how to adapt and, just try and make the best of things, even though if that wasn't what the original intent was,
Sure.
So
So you can't panic.
no, you can't panic. Yeah, well, it's funny because I remember like the first year we did the Mint, 2012 or 13 or 14, whatever, like very early days. I was spun out, dude. I was running around with my head cut off and just disheveled, and I mean, it was crazy, And so I always think of that in circumstances, later on. It's just like, okay, just calm down, compose yourself, and just try and be level-headed about decisions you make or instructions you give or, things like that.
Right. It'd be like, what would KJ Howe do?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. But for me, it's been fun. I think I have a unique perspective on the overall event. There's 20 different department heads underneath me or whatever, however you want to look at it, department heads. And
yeah, underneath you, yeah.
And, Katie with registration, Bill and tech, Lonnie and content, Markham and live stream, security, parking, the list goes on. But they're all worried about the one thing that they're there to do.
Right.
And my job is to kind of take a step back and figure out how all the pieces go together. And if you pull one thing over here and try and push it over there, how does that affect everyone involved, not just the two people that kind of needed their thing? So that's been a really fun process. But at the same time, all of those people are just amazing at what they do. And we've done it enough times now where the management side of it isn't such a big workload.
Yeah,
we can trust people that they're there and they're going to get the job done, and they'll call us when they need us. But beyond that, it's like, let them do their thing.
I think the thing I have a lot of fun with you is the problem solving, right? Is like, instead of looking at things, I think this business teaches you, like, you can't get overwhelmed because that's not a solution. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to look at stuff and go, okay, cool. Like, what's the solution for this? How do we do it? Like, you and I were talking the other day about live stream, and we're, planning on a live stream for the California 300. But we have a budget we have to be within, right? So it was like, how do we make the live stream as good as it can be and make it look like we're spending 4 times the money? You're like, what are those components that we add or subtract? And how do we maximize it? And, that for me is fun. I'm sure it is for you as well.
Yeah. It's just maximizing what you have, it's, man, there's just so many things like, designing a race course that is both fun for the racers, easy to chase or get around for the pit crews. Can we make it efficient so that, our live stream and our content can maximize the resources that we have? It's crazy to think about, like, 4 years ago, we weren't doing motorcycles. So the first year we did it with Best in the Desert, they did their course, and that was one way to do it. We shared some car truck course, and then veered off and then came back in. And again, that was when we were doing like 2 races a day, crazy hours. So then coming off of that, and when we, went our separate ways, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this, So I think it was 2021 where, okay, we put all the motorcycles on this side of the course and the cars and trucks on that side of the course so that we could, operate the races at the same time. And, when you take a little bit over here to give over there, we started going from a 110-mile course, down to like 100, and now we're at 95 right now, so that we can do all these things. And, that year, I think it was the the sand hill that we had all those bottlenecks, and we, but we had to get that mileage to have the distance there. And so, that was crazy to look back and say, like, we did it that way. And then the following year, it's like, okay, there's got to be a better way. All right, well, how can we cross the race courses? Because there's so much single track out there that we can use, but it has to jive with, having the car and truck course. So, okay, can't do that at speed. So let's use the remote pit to cross those vehicles safely. They
Right.
cross them on the entrance of the car and truck. Motorcycles can go do a loop. It can be 5, 10, 100 miles. All you got to do is bring them back to the entrance of that pit, a mile later on the car and truck course. Now you can cross, and that's worked really well for us the last few years, and
Attention Off-Road Nation. The Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship comes roaring through Parker, Vegas, and Barstow in 2024. It's 3 of the most prestigious and competitive off-road races in the sport. It all starts with the return of the Parker 400 in beautiful Arizona, January 10th through the 14th. Then it's the biggest, baddest, most grueling off-road race on the planet. The BF Goodrich Tires Mint 400 comes roaring back into Sin City, Las Vegas, March 6th through the 10th. And finally, the climactic conclusion of the Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship. The California 300 returns to Barstow, October 2nd through the 6th. Visit unlimitedoffroadracing.com for complete details. The 2024 Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship is here.
What's that? I mean, just getting personal for a second. Like, what's that feel like for you, knowing that, like, you're literally designing the biggest off-road race in North America?
The first year I was tripping. I was like really, really nervous, right? Because we send the motorcycles out, then we send cars and trucks out. And I'm like, I just need everybody to get back here, just do one lap. And so I know that everything is all good, and the leaders at least figured it out, right? And that happened, and I was just like, okay, cool. Now we can relax a little bit. And, that was 2 years ago, and this year was amazing. But yeah, I mean, like, it may not seem like it, but the logistics of doing that and crossing the courses and having the course workers trained and in the right places, that's a testament to Jason. But yeah, that first year I was just like, well, I hope this works. I knew it was going to, but
Sure,
there's always that like little voice in the back of your head saying, okay, yeah, did you really mark it right?
Yeah.
When it should have went left. You know what I mean? So, and this year, I think we made a huge leap in the infield design and layout to kind of maximize the spectating in Prim, whereas previous years they kind of did the road jump and then they just left. Well, this year we cut the initial loop in half and looped them back in front of the fans. They jumped the road, then they came back and did that other half of the loop, then they went out.
Yeah.
So, like, trying to time or create the distance on the race course to time the vehicles at 1 minute intervals so that the 2 cars or trucks that went off 1 minute prior, the next 2 are in line. So now there's 4 trucks,
Right.
in front of the fans jumping and doing their thing and all that, while there's a motorcycles happening as well. We have youth racing and qualifying.
That's what I think.
Crazy. Dude.
That's, it's funny because everybody has their perspective, but also their what they want, right? Hey, I want the youth racers. I want to be in front of all the, the spectators. Of course, we get it, and we're always going to try and do that. But, like, to your point, it's like in one day we're going to have, motorcycle racing, qualifying, youth racing. I don't know, probably something else, all going on within the same day, right? So it's not as simple as NASCAR. Like, hey, we got one oval.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we got to make multiple, basically multiple tracks, and then they have to come together at a point where we can time them and score them. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, the youth racing too, it's motivating, right? Like 2 years ago, parents were like, we're not in front of the fans. You don't care about the kids. And I'm just like, no, we just have a lot going on. But it
If
challenged
anybody cares about the kids, it's us.
but it challenged me to think about, okay, how can we do this? Like, how can we get the kids in there, or in the main stretch and the whole thing? And just, and looking at the time and the data from the previous year, we did have adequate time to bump the car and truck race back 1 hour so that we could do that youth racing before anything happened in front of the fans, that Saturday. And it's like little things that you don't think about. I didn't even think about that solved the challenge, we'll call it, that we had last year or the previous year, that, everybody finished at the same time. So the stage was just like, we got motorcycles coming in, we got trucks, we got kids, so like it was just a perfect sequence where we could finish the kids, the motorcycles finished while the cars and trucks are still racing.
Right.
So now they have their moment on the stage, and then we pretty much cleared all of them by the time the first leaders came through. So it was so good. But again, I'm just like, how can we make it better?
Yeah. Well, we're going to add more stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, thinking logically, let's apply the same concept of racing 2 simultaneous races on Saturday to Friday. So one thing I'm trying to figure out right now is how can we, have our course, and then create a second course on Friday so that we can kind of separate the classes a little bit.
Sure.
Which I think would be a huge additional evolution of what we already have, just so that the UTVs and the faster vehicles can be on a course, and then we have the slower cars
not be encumbered by the slower vehicles. Yeah,
and vice versa. Every year it's a class 11 getting nerfed by a UTV or a vintage car or something. And so if they don't like racing with them and they don't like racing with them, like, okay, let's just try and come up with a way to alleviate that tension a little bit.
Well, everybody racing has somewhat of their own self-interest in mind, right? And that's the thing we always have to juggle. But yeah, I think it's been cool, to watch your evolution, and also, in my management style is trial by fire. It's like, yeah, start swimming, let's go, right? But it's been really cool. And 2, I think what's rad is that, just like the business relationship that I have with Josh, like he's not me. Like, he doesn't think like me, nor do you, right? And so you give me another perspective that, and many times I hadn't considered, right? And I think that's what one of the many things that makes you so valuable, right?
I mean, data doesn't lie, right? Numbers and into a formula that's the answer is the answer, right?
Sure.
So I really try and approach things from like, okay, everybody has their opinion and everybody has emotion and their gut, but when you really organize the data, like, what does that say?
Sure.
And so that's my approach, really, is to, try and find what that is so that we can get 85%.
Sure.
A good decision. It's never going to fit everyone, and that's just the nature of dealing with, so many people in the volume of the event. But I think it was that year during COVID where we had to push the Mint to December. We were like so worried about how the Baja 1000 would affect us and all of that. So, I took our entry list from last year, Score's entry list from last year, put the 2 over, sorted the names, where are the duplicates, right? So when I found out that, 10 to 15% of our racers are racing that race, only 10 to 15%, I get it. Like, our numbers are a little skewed with the youth racing and things like that. But I was like, oh God, we're going to be fine, Yeah. Meanwhile, everyone's online saying, oh God, they're never going to get entries and the whole thing. So when I really did that exercise, I'm like, okay, if you can use the data and the numbers to make your decisions, that's how you're really going to make the best ones.
100%. I mean, I remember that, and that was a huge revelation for me, because I would have said 40 to anywhere between 40 and 60%.
Right.
and so, that really changed my mindset. So I agree with you that I think data is the key to really understanding things, no, it's rad. Now, besides your favorite thing, I mean, was there a moment in this where you're like, all right, I'm in, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this indefinitely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's really a specific moment, but it's like shit or get off the pot kind of thing, like
Sure.
time is only linear and you only have so much of it. So it's like, okay, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. So I chose to do it. And, here we are. Yeah, it's been fun.
Nice.
So now okay, so we have the Mint. That's cool. The California 300 was a whole different experience because it was just radically different of how we could do the event. Coming from Vegas, it was, there's a very, very particular way to do things,
right,
and a very specific and limited amount of resources and trails and things like that we can use. And Barstow is like clean slate.
Yeah.
Design this and do this however you want to do it. So it actually made it more challenging because you just kept going and going. Well, if we do this, we can do that. And if we do that, we can do this.
And we just did it when we were out there with Terry Madden looking at rock lines. I mean, that's the funny thing is like, you're only limited by your imagination, right? Like, yeah, there's some rules, like different off-roading areas have different rules, but like, I really enjoy the process of it. I like, going out and pre-running and figuring out all the lines and, what we're going to use and arguing with you and, and missing all the turns because you're telling me to turn after the turns.
No, well, am I calling the turns or am I calling the not turns?
No, it's the process of like, we're out there looking for stuff. It's not a race, right? But it's extremely enjoyable. Like we were just out looking at, new potential race course together. And, that's time and experience that is a pleasurable part of our business. You know what I mean? Like it's really cool.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that new one. Because it's just logistically a little bit different from what we currently have. And, I think it's cool to be able to think about things. Really, this all begins from the pitting, and the chase crews. Because you can have the most badass course ever, but if you can't get people there, to pit their vehicles, then it doesn't matter. So, it's just, and I think when we were doing tours down in Baja, doing the Legends Rally stuff, that's when I really learned, okay, mapping and logistics. And, we've got 60 people behind us that are all going to need food, fuel, hotels, the whole thing. And we're responsible for them.
Yeah.
So, that one will be fun.
Yeah. No, doing Legends Rally was a lot of fun. I'd like to do it again. I just, the timing part of it's tough. And, I'd actually like to do some up here, in America. But, it was cool to share, those parts of Baja with people that, had no idea that was there.
Mm-hmm.
We gained some pretty valuable friends like, with Katie and JJ and, a handful of other people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they were fun, and the idea behind it was cool. And, that was kind of part of fast tracking my, experience was, I did get to hang out with Larry Ragland for 3 days and Rossler. And I think you broke 2, maybe 3 cars on the one trip with Walker. So I had to hop in with Walker for, 300 miles over 2 days. And so I remember, that's funny thinking about that because Walker and he's driving obviously, and we come around this turn. I can't even remember where we are, but there's like a cat. There's like a not like a puma or what cat?
Bobcat,
yeah,
probably,
bobcat, yeah. And we just kind of both look at each other and we're like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
So those Legends Rally trips were fun, and I would like to do some up here. I think it's just about getting people together and going and off-roading.
Yeah.
It's just a really fun thing, and the camaraderie on rides like that is just really really fun.
Yeah, it's funny because those experiences connect you. Like, I was actually texting the other night with Adon, right? Who Adon was basically like our right hand and running that. He ran all the support crews. And if you guys ever need help with electronics when you're in Ensenada or in Baja, Don Legs, I think it's EEG or something.
Yeah,
electronics, yeah. But he's the man.
Yeah, Rosie.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rosie.
Oh yeah, shout out to Rosie too.
The car that he fixed probably 10 times. But, it was fun. And just watching those guys, like the legends, talk about how long they've been going down there and racing, and they never knew a lot of this stuff existed. I think it was Rossler that was it was Raglan that was at the Cowboy Winery just out of Ojos.
Yeah.
He's like, I've passed by this.
Yeah.
It's 100 yards that way. I passed this 100 times.
Yeah.
And I never knew this was there or here. And this was the coolest thing ever.
It's really funny, dude, because he made some announcement about he just did Nora and that he's done. That was his last race. And so I was going to text him and Kelly, his girl, and be like, because we were at that. Remember, she was there and she was like, "Let's buy this place."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, "Yes, I'm in." But no, it was really cool to share those, those different pieces of Baja with people, and it's the same with up here. Is like, we were pre-running for Parker. I had a blast, camping with the guys, barbecuing, and just sitting around a campfire talking smack, and the beauty of the Sonoran Desert is just stunning.
Yeah, I really like the Parker race course, especially having come off of California 300.
Yeah.
I was just laughing. I'm like thinking of Johnny and the course parking team, like, this is going to be the easiest thing ever.
Yeah.
In Barstow, there's trails every which way, and they're really rough. But I was just kind of smiling, just going through that and being like,
yeah, I think it's funny because, I told you this before that, like, in our family, like, your dad, who's my uncle, is like, was our favorite uncle because he was one of the younger uncles in our family. And when Josh and I were kids and we'd go visit Grandma and Grandpa in South Haven, your dad was still going to college, and there were the cottages next to the main house and he lived in one of them. And so we go running out of the van door. Remember, we had this big ass old van, and, we go running out of the van door and go running over to see what Uncle Terry was doing. And, the clearest memory I have of him is he was either he had a record player outside overlooking Lake Michigan and he's like rocking out to music, or he was back playing a flute to Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just like, oh, he's the cool uncle. Yeah. Right. And so then, in our relationship, hanging out with you, it's like hanging out with him. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, I think one of my most favorite things that we've been able to do in off-road is, again, sharing my passion for off-road racing and off-road culture with you, but then having your dad come here and like ride with us in the back of a Razor the entire 1,400 miles of the Baja 1000 Peninsula run. We did that one year.
Yeah.
And I kept going, hey, I kept telling your dad, like, hey, you can get out and sit in the chase truck and, take a nap or whatever. And he's just like, no way, I'm not missing a minute of this. This is rad. Yeah. Right. And there's one point I remember, like, we were down in the whoops by Constitution that are just like, okay, dude, it's going to be like 15 miles of whoops, you know? And I keep looking back there expecting for him to quit. And he's just like fist pumping the whole time.
Yeah. No, that was by far the coolest experience ever, is to, at the time, what year was that? Like 2000?
I don't even know.
17.
I'm terrible with years.
Yeah, me too. But, that was probably around the time where I'm finding my groove a little bit. So I got to share that with him, and he was, same as what happened with me. Like, he fell in love with it, and now he asks every time he comes out to Mint if he can go pre-running on the race course and all of that. But yeah, that was when we break in like San Juanico and then had to tow the UTV all the way through Purisima and into Liberto.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And like
yes,
put him, or he wasn't on the strap, but
yeah,
you know, it was just a long time of getting back to the chase truck, and that was part of it, you know, and he loves it. It's just the adventure. And then, you know, we hung out down in La Paz, and then went all the way through Los Burles and down to Cabo, you know, up on the other side, back up over the next week, and, you know, just drinking and fishing and eating. And yeah, he's like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's I wish we could take not just all of our family and friends and put them on an experience like that and be like, this is what we do. You know what I mean? This is why we're so passionate about it, is that, you know, we get to share this with people, you know?
The product is easy sell. You know, it's just getting people there, you know, and I feel like that's what we've cracked with the Mint is, you know, just getting people to come to an experience that's pleasurable. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's very accessible to come to the Mint,
Well,
whether you're from out of town or in town, whatever. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas and see trucks jump and do amazing things?
I think that we've done a really good job collectively of, you know, fine tuning it to the point where it is mainstream consumable. And now, of course, we've got to do that with all the other events. But, you know, it's a cool and interesting thing because, you know, now I of course I believe in the product, but like every year, you know, like I get to have a really great experience at the Mint because I'm, you know, there's a good chunk of the time where I'm in the VIP area and I'm watching how people are reacting, and they're coming up to me and they're like, dude, I had no idea. This is the coolest thing on the planet. Right. And I'm like, I told you so. Like, who doesn't want to watch a trophy truck jump 15 feet in the air and land flat? Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You can hear it. You can feel the ground shake. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, holy shit, I had no idea, right?
Off-road race fans, the third annual California 300 off-road race comes blasting back into Barstow this fall, Thursday, October 3rd through Sunday, October 6th. Don't miss your chance to see hundreds of the country's elite desert off-road racers go door to door on a brutal 300-mile desert race course and witness the exciting conclusion of the Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship season. Visit thecalifornia300.com for more information and to purchase spectating, camping, parking, and VIP tickets. The California 300 returns!
Wook Kelly is now a lifer, you know. He's like, you know, I want to come check this out. So we got him camping and got the whole thing, and now he's like, yeah, I'm coming every year.
Yeah.
He's like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, you know, did the whole thing, took him into the production truck and showed him the live stream logistics, into the tent, gave him the whole thing, and he owns property down in Los Burles area or La Paz area, and had friends down there who had always wanted to go to the Mint, and he's like, yeah, I know those guys. They're like my best friend. So they came up and hooked them all up, and same thing. They were like, this is really cool. This is really rad. So
yeah, no, and same thing. I love that, right? Because I think, you know, I think that it's like music, right? It's like universal, right? And it's not like, oh, you have to be this type of person or that type of person. It's like I've never brought anybody to the race that's been like, meh.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're always like, holy shit. And that's a good feeling.
yeah. Being universal, I think, is a really interesting point to talk about. Just because it doesn't matter if it's the people or the classes or the vehicles or this or that. Like, the sport overall is very vast, and there's all sorts of different people involved in it. Classes, you can race anything.
And it's open. We want you here racing. We want you here spectating. It's not some closed like boys club.
Right. And I think that's what's cool about all the Hoop DX stuff and like the military side of the event. You know, it's inclusive, right? You know, we're not excluding anybody, you know, because that's how this whole thing started, is just crazy people wanting to go fast in the desert, and they built what they could, you know, so we need to continue that, you know, like within reason, you know, like I get it, that there's a balance there. But
it's funny. There's like, you know, in the process of this business, like, you end up working with all sorts of different people, but Did you ever think you'd be buddies with Bill
Don't say it.
Savage?
Oh, I thought you were going to say somebody else. I did, not knowing who he was, but the second I met him, I'm like, this is a dude I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life.
Right.
And that's just another person that I've gotten to know and really understand who he is and what he's done, and really understand that it's all out of passion and care. Like,
Sure.
he cares so much about this industry and the sport that he'll be involved until he's dead. Like,
Yeah.
that's just who he is. But I love Bill. We get along really well, and he's just misunderstood. But yeah.
Who else along the way have you become friends with that you kind of like go, you appreciate from the perspective of like, this is not a person you'd ever know unless it was for off-road racing?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know any like characters, per se. But I've met a lot of cool people, and Jason Pritchard's one of them. Like, we talk about, everything.
Yeah.
And he has a really balanced, perspective on things where he can be level-headed and have discussions
Sure.
from both sides of the story. And we talk a lot, and it's really fun to like talk about where we're at, imagine where we could be, and everything in between. And I really enjoyed getting to know him, and I value our friendship a lot.
Yeah, I love him. He's a very intelligent person, and like you said, he's a very calculated person. Like, he goes, oh, okay. He analyzes things and goes, he doesn't just jump to conclusion and go, oh yeah, this is the way. And it's funny because that's one of the things I love about the culture is like, the stereotype is like, you're redneck, you're brash, and you're not that smart because you're, a redneck or whatever, right? And the reality is when you look at this culture, it attracts smart people who aren't afraid to work hard and get their hands dirty, so there's a whole bunch of people. Like, I have a big list, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing the podcast. Is I want to have these conversations in a way that other people can listen, and they can form their own opinions, but they will see that we are a culture of very passionate, intelligent people that love going off-roading and the beauty of nature. I mean, like, we were just talking about us spending the other week pre-running, and what we saw in 4 days, most people will never see in their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that was like, it was bitching. I was stoked, but that's like, we're gonna go do that again and again and again and again in all different parts of the world. And not just our race course, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, that's what I've really learned about this culture through the process of what we do is like, there's some really cool people that I'm really glad that I get to meet and call my friends, because it enriches me and it enriches my life.
It's going through the experience of it being hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. What we do is hard. It's not easy, and that's why that first year at California 300, like, I was stoked on the race course. It was hard, and people were like, holy shit, like, I'm done. Like, and it was hard, but I don't think we have any interest in making things easy, because, I know how hard us and our team works, that I would feel like we cheated the racers if we don't make them race as hard as we work.
I think that's the truth of the nucleus of this, is that, because like, look, there's a lot of other ways you could recreate. There's a lot of other forms of racing that are much easier. There's a lot of things, but I think that at the nucleus of off-road culture is, doing this because it is a challenge. It is difficult. If it was, Rubicon Trail is not special because it's a highway.
Right.
It's special because it is, a difficult rock crawl in and out of. But when you get to the springs in the middle of it, it's like opening up a Christmas gift, and being in the beauty of that environment is special, and you're not, unless you're some like super hardcore hiker, you're not going to hike that. You know what I mean? That's not how you're going to get there. And I think with racing, it's much the same in the sense that like, I feel, to your point, that if we're at the finish line and people are like, yeah, it was cool. We didn't do our job.
Yeah.
But if we're at the finish line and they're like, dude, like that last lap was crazy, right? Then we've got it to the point where it's like, it's hard enough. They're going to come away feeling accomplished, right? And that means something,
Yeah. Yeah, and like the cool thing about Barstow too is like it can be different. I think we talked about this in the last podcast is, we have everything to work with there. So we can make changes, and we have made changes for this October.
Yeah.
And just finding those longer stretches to get the speeds up, partner that with some multiple passing lines and, break things up. Like, it's cool. I wish we had a little bit more, but it's just what we're working with. So
yeah, it's a really good course. It's funny because like we've got to do a better job promoting the course, because everybody still has the perception that Barstow is just Barstow, Maine, right? And there is some stuff out there that's like, wow, it's really rough, but that's not all of it. There's a lot of actually really beautiful areas of Barstow, which, as you're the one who really pushed for this race. I was overlooking it, and you're like, we need to look at it. We need to look at it. I'm really glad that we did, because I believe it's going to become the biggest race.
I think it could be bigger than the Mint.
Yeah.
I do, because that race has everything, or a lot of things that the Mint will never have. And the Mint has a lot of things that race will never have. So I really believe that we can craft that event into being more about coming and being an active part of the event through camping and riding and demoing units and, driving, like our tacking contingency should be a place where, you can drive there, roll in, and you can get fresh tires on your truck or buy new wheels and, all that stuff. I think the event, or the side of just being able to participate a little bit more will be what that event is all about. And the proximity to LA, there's just a lot of people who can make that drive pretty easily and then drive home, or stay in camp or whatever. But
I think that's one thing to really push too, is that unlike the Mint, where the desert's basically locked down while we're doing the event, but at Barstow, like, you can move around as long as you're off the course. And then when the race isn't running, you're free to recreate. You're free to get out in your Jeep, your pre-runner, your UTV, and go rip around. It's open OHV land, right? We just want you to do it responsibly, and while the race is running, stay 50 to 150 feet, 50 to 150 feet back from the course. Keep everybody safe. What are you looking forward to the most?
More races.
More races.
Yeah. I want to do. I mean, I laugh in my head when I think about having 5 Mint 400s a year. Like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And we have a good jump start on an event with Parker, with the rich history there.
Yeah.
Kind of created a new thing with California 300. Yes, playing into the history there as well.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard to understand that the Mint didn't happen over time. So the patience is the hardest part in all of this, because I know what the end goal
Plus,
is.
I don't plan on being alive in 57 years or however old the Mint is.
Right.
Well, maybe I will be. Yeah. 107.
Well, I mean, we talk about this openly all the time. I think you're 15 or 16 years older than me. I'm 36. So, and I feel like I'm running out of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm young compared to a lot of other people, but I'm just saying, like, I just want to move quicker.
Yeah.
But you have to be patient and trust the process and understand that, the Mint didn't happen overnight. It was very calculated and very, specific with decisions that a lot of people often don't understand or get. But I would hate myself if we were still doing our start finish in the Gene Hurst pit.
Oh God.
Like looking, I'm serious, just like looking back. And if we weren't where we are today, I would just hate my life,
Yeah.
you know, because it's been a crazy journey and a crazy process, but you know, we wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't take chances and, you know, just continuously push stuff.
When you can see, like, it's funny because you know, whatever, like you do a good job of like, you know, I'm very headstrong and very, you know, hard charging forward and but also very critical. Right. And, you know, you do this thing where you pull out like, hey, remember, here was our start in 2012.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like the side-by-side photo of our stage in the Gene Hurst pit 10 years ago, and like our stage, like the one shot of Luke McMillan, like long lens, all compressed, the huge stage, the massive crowd, the champagne, like it was just like that photograph is the most epic one ever, comparing or side-by-side next to, you know, the photo of Robbie Gordon, you know, on the little 1 foot stage that I actually put together, ironically. I remember like hand cranking little pieces and it was in the wrong spot. So Justin and I had to like move it like 20 feet this way. Why? Because whatever. But you know, I'm just proud of where we've come.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be, you know, it's the future is ours. It's going to be exciting. You know, and I'm excited to share it with people. Like, that's the thing is, like, we talk internally and we know our plans and, you know, we don't want to put out false information and say, hey, we're going to do this until, you know, the permit's done and all the things are 100% solid. But, you know, that being said, I'm excited for the future to share it with everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, like even Barstow, like that's one thing, like the people who weren't familiar with Barstow after they do the course, they're like, it's tough, but it's badass, right? And I'm like, dude, I told you.
Yeah. And that goes back to the very first question that you asked me, is like, you know, talking about value and vision is, you know, I'm a little anxious, right? Admittedly, you know, so on our board, I had like a little low hanging fruit column where it's like, hey, we could do this right now, right? Sure. And have 5 races. But I think you're a little more like, right, but what is the vision with those races? You know what I mean? Or are we doing things just to do them, right? You know, could we go to Laughlin? Could we have another race with Crit? Or could we go back to Havasu and have a 6th UTV race? You know what I mean? Like, but like when you boil it down to like what it is,
well, and what's valuable
and what we want to do and what's valuable. Yeah.
You know, that's the thing is like what people don't understand is like when we're making decisions, we're going, okay, is it good for the racers? Number 1. Number 2, is it good for the sponsors? Okay. Is it good for spectating? What major market are we going to affect? Right? Like, how do we sell products because we're doing this? Because if we don't take those things into consideration, we're not going to have off-road racing in the future. Right. The goal is to unlock the value because, you know, Josh just broke it down on the previous podcast. Like we're, you know, 2% of the GDP, right? In terms of off-road recreation, or in terms of outdoor recreation, and off-road is the overwhelming majority of those numbers, and probably even more because of the way that they count, you know, that's just state and federal land. Right, that it doesn't account for, you know, all the private land stuff and, you know, all the other things. So, you know, the off-road industry is huge and it's, you know, affects the entire planet, and it's important that we wield that power in a way that reciprocates back into it. Because, you know, if you look at what Formula One's done over the last couple of years coming into America, like that energizes us. That's pretty cool. But I look at what America is. We are a truck nation, and we are the only people who race trucks. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
Yeah, I think, you know, like we're to a level now with the Mint where we can start attracting non-endemic brands. And we have done that. Like O'Reilly's is the perfect example. You know, like they came in to us and said, or they didn't say, we want to sponsor trophy truck racing. You know, they had a very specific demographic that they were like, we want to reach these people. So I think it's a little bit silly what we're doing right now, which is year after year, we're just circling the same amount of money, or the same pool of money, right? The same sponsors our pool isn't getting any bigger,
Right.
And the events and the promoters need to get, their events to a certain level before people start taking us seriously, to be honest, and so I remember like those first couple of years going into our meetings in Vegas with this awesome analytics report, and we're like, cool, look at how great we are. And they're like, yeah, well, how many people did you bring to town and how many tickets did you sell? And we're like, we don't sell tickets. And they're like, basically like, you're not a real event then, So I think, unfortunately there's a lot of people like carrying the load of that, but there will become a day very soon where the value proposition is so high that brands like Coca-Cola, American Express, DeWalt, Xfinity can come and be a part of this,
100%.
because relatively speaking, where they're investing now, it's very cheap to get in here. And when that happens, I believe entry fees go down, entries go up, and there will always be a space, obviously, for the endemic brands. But I think the dollars that we've been taking with them traditionally to fund the event, now we have the events funded by these big corporations. Now that money can be given back to the racers in the form of purses and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see where this is going to go in the next 3 or 4 years.
What, like, just, we were talking about it earlier, but like, what do you want people to know about, producing the Mint?
That there's a lot of things that happen and we can't always justify or rationalize. We just need their trust that we do have vision and we know where this is going to go. We have a 5, a 10, and a 20-year plan.
Yeah.
And, the support that we've gotten from people, racers and sponsors over the years has enabled us to live that. I was thinking about it the other day as well. It's just like, events are just tough in general. Things happen that are just stupid. Like this year, someone miscalculated the overhang of the sea crate entrance and smashed into that and had to fix that. 1 year, I think it was 2020, I'd finally gone to bed in Prim and I'm like pulling the blanket over my body. And then I get a phone call from Tony and I'm like, hey, Tony, why are you calling me? And that one of our guys clipped the edge on a golf cart and like broke his leg. And, or like, 1 year the AV guys miscalculated the power and blew up all the screens at 10 p.m. before, the show the next day. So Josh and I are in Walmart at like 2 a.m. trying to find the biggest TVs we can buy just so that we can watch the live stream. The crazy investment of our live stream that is like,
it's crazy. Shit is going to go wrong.
Yeah.
You just have to adapt and overcome. Like to your point earlier, like panicking, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Help.
Right. So like you just have to go into like, okay. Right. Like let all the emotion go and just go, sweet. Your leg is cut off. Let's get a tourniquet on it and let's get you to the hospital and get your legs sewn back, whatever it is, right?
Jason and I always talk about that we need our own BTS film crew, like shooting embedded style of just like, people wouldn't believe all the stuff that happens, but that's not their job. It's ours, Their job is to show up and have a good time.
Absolutely.
So
nice. Well, that wasn't too painful, right?
No. The cool thing is we're going to hang it up and go back to the office and spend the rest of the day together.
That's right. Right on. Well, thanks for doing this.
No worries.
All right.